On this edition of Let's Explore This, you are going to learn about the oldest town in the North Shore area of the Little Tennessee River and what is now part of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. This town on Hazel Creek, Proctor, was also said to be the most populated and progressive. Now, folks, I hate to say it, but today, the easiest way for you to visit Proctor is via a boat ride. Otherwise, it would take a terribly long hike. Let me here turn off lecture mode and turn on explore mode, because...
Well, we have a sign. Danger. Bears are active in this area. Do not approach them. Attacks on humans have occurred, inflicting serious injuries and death. That's nice to know. I can understand why they might be around this area. They tend to like open fields and valleys. And yes, I think you could find them over here. I haven't seen any yet. The last two hikes I think I might have saw a bear, but they were so far in the distance I couldn't really make it out, and by the time I whipped my camera they were gone. But they were so far in the distance that I wasn't sure if it was or not. But nonetheless, wow! Here's an open clearing. It's a campsite, but if it's anything like Jenkins Place and Bryson Place, sometimes campsites mark the spots of old homesteads. I don't know. That might not be the case. It's just something to ponder.
So, this here is a composite sketch of what Moses Proctor is thought to have looked like. That is all I was able to find in the Proctor folder. I guess there is no actual photo of Moses. Still, why is that important, might you ask? Well, he was the first settler. He came here in 1830. The area was then known as Hazelnut Creek. The village that was established was then known for the first 56 years as Hazel Creek.
Listen. Do you hear what I hear? Listen very carefully. Do you hear that? It sounds like water's down there, doesn't it? Let's see. Yes, here is the water. I told you, I heard water, and here it is.
So, Hazel Creek, of course, was named after this very creek right here. Yes, folks, this here is Hazel Creek. And yes, this creek, it has always had a special kind of drawing power on people. Joyce Laney, whom I am assuming to have been or even still is an area local, once said, "Put your feet in Hazel Creek and you'll always come back." Okay, folks, time to turn on explore mode, 'cause
somebody's got to tell me. So this sign here says Lakeshore Trail, and it's pointing in that direction. Well, that's all well and good until you cross the bridge. And here, Lakeshore Trail, Fontana Lake, in that direction, on the other side of this bridge. That's all well and good. So I'm going to assume that Lakeshore Trail crosses Hazel Creek and starts to go that way, which would make sense. But somebody then has to tell me, why does this sign say Lakeshore Trail? in that direction. This here does not look like it's really well kept. People are going to get confused if they come over here and see this sign and start thinking, I can get to Eagle Creek over here, because you just need to keep following Lakeshore Trail. Well, that would be incorrect. Here's why. Because this Lakeshore Trail reaches Eagle Creek Trail in that direction, which makes perfect sense, because if it follows the lake, well, Hazel Creek is a tributary of that lake. And in order to keep following the lake, the trail has got to cross the creek and start going around the lake. Of course, they would probably want people to first pass through Proctor so they can have something to look at, and people will be like, huh, why is there buildings here? Well, I mean, there's a sign over there on the other side of that bridge that gives a very clear explanation. However, my explanations are going to go much more in depth than what that sign talks about.
So Proctor and his wife Patience were buried in Possum Hollow, on the site of their first log cabin. Their heads, well, they are said to rest on the site of the hearth. The 17 by 20 cabin had a dirt floor and 2 doors, but no windows. Okay, folks, yet again, we have to turn on explore mode, because...
What do we have over here? It looks like we have a set of steps. Is there something up here? It says that you cannot take a horse. It's probably just another trail. Let me go up just a little bit, and I'll tell you what, folks. If I don't find anything significant up there, I'll just move on to the next part of my discussion. How does that sound? Well, we did reach something.
Wow, look what we have here. The Proctor Cemetery, with 198 graves, supposedly. Proctor is the largest burial ground remaining on the Fontana North Shore, following the Tennessee Valley Authority's removal of 1,047 graves in 1943 for the Fontana Reservoir. So, folks, tell me, where do you think those removed graves are today? Well, I can tell you one thing. I am not going to take you there on this episode. However, here is a map, and notice the name, Lewada, at the far right. Well, if you do not know, there is a large cemetery there. A number of those removed graves, they are there. And right now, I must turn on explore mode, because, you see...
So, here I am at the Proctor Cemetery, and moving over here, we have a bench. That's not uncommon to find. Usually they do put those in cemeteries, so people can sit down and relax. But what is unusual to find in a cemetery, however, is an old door. That doesn't look like your typical door. It looks like it goes to something. It's made of metal, maybe a heating device, electrical panel or something. I don't know. But I imagine it probably comes from one of those long gone buildings. I don't know. It's definitely rusted and looks very old. But even so, why is it here? Was it put here in remembrance of one of the buildings that was owned by someone here in the cemetery? Or is it just a random find.
Moving on now to the Proctor Missionary Baptist Church. It was established in 1880. It was originally founded as the Hazel Creek Missionary Baptist Church, because, Proctor was originally called Hazel Creek. The one-room log building that housed that church, well, it also served as the Hazel Creek School. What we have here is a photo taken a bit later in 1926 of a Sunday school class that was once housed in the church building. Though, not all was so smooth with this church. You see, the history of the Tennessee River Baptist Association of 1830 to 1892 reported in its July 1883 annual report the following words. The elder, J.L. Proctor, had been excluded from Hazel Creek on charge of adultery, one of the most shameful and sickening acts of disgrace perpetrated by a man. Well, I don't know about that. I was not asked my opinion on the matter, but anyway. The Proctor School was founded in 1880 as the Hazel Creek School, and it was changed to the Proctor School in 1907. Joseph and Catherine Welch, on October 20th of 1886, deeded an acre to the Hazel Creek School District 10. That school, it was near W.A. Franklin's store, and by 1888, Hazel Creek was one of 27 one-room log schools located in Swain County. I have no photo. I guess, though, it might have looked something like this. Moving on now to the Proctor Post Office, for which, once again, unfortunately, I have either overlooked or simply did not seem to locate a photo of. And it was established here at Hazel Creek in 1886. At this point in time, it seems, this area came to be referred to as Proctor, named for, this man. The name was submitted to the government by his son, William, who was instrumental in obtaining the post office. Let's now move over to this here, a photo of a Jim Bradshaw, but it is listed as Jim Bob. Yes, he is of the Bradshaw clan, but may or may not be James V. Bradshaw, who was appointed the first postmaster on April 12th of 1886. Of course, many others did come to follow, and on October 18th of 1944, the post office, it was discontinued due to, flooding by the Fontana Reservoir. Mail service was then sent across that lake to the new town of Fontana Dam in Graham County. Okay, folks, apparently there must have been a lumber company here. Reportedly, in 1909, the Ritter Lumber Company built a 2-story Union church, with the lodge using the second floor. I am not sure what lodge is being referred to here, maybe the Odd Fellows, but not sure. Although to be used by all denominations, the building became known as the Proctor Missionary Baptist Church. And do you know what that means, folks? Yes, this is not the original church. So, where was that original log building? I don't know. You're going to have to tell me. Regardless, from 1909 to 1927, when the Ritter Lumber Company operated in this area, Proctor, reportedly, was a boom town of about 1,000. Another 1,000 is said to have worked in the labor camps along the Hazel Creek watershed, up to Siler's Bald. Well, here is a map. Hazel Creek is one of those little inlets on the far left, extending eastward from the lake. And Siler's Bald? Well, here, as you can see, it is named. So, yes, that is one large area for sure. Wow. Now, that is what I call a Christmas tree in the making. So, the W.M. Ritter Lumber Company of Columbus, Ohio, yes, they were originally from that far away. Well, they came to Proctor in 1903 and began operation of its lumber mill on October 1st of 1909. Up until then, Proctor itself had been a sleepy little village on Hazel Creek for nearly 80 years. You know, though, in the beginning, it did have that one-room log schoolhouse and a church. Then, almost overnight, Ritter's lumber operations, they pushed Proctor's population to over 1,000. Loggers and their families on the upper reaches of Hazel Creek, up as far as Siler's Bald, pushed the population there to still another 1,000. And it was this man, William M. Ritter, who was responsible for all of that, the founder of the largest hardwood lumber company. He was regarded as the father of the Appalachian hardwood industry, and Ritter operated an extensive logging railroad on Hazel Creek, and its tributaries of Sugar Fork, Bone Valley, and Proctor Creeks, as well as on Proctor, Desolation, Defeat, and Cold Spring branches. And there were 33 miles of narrow gauge track and 17 miles of standard gauge. The logs? Well, they were carried to the mill pond, sawmill, and kiln at Proctor by the narrow gauge railroad. And the finished lumber, yes, it was placed on standard gauge railroad cars at Proctor to be taken to Ritter. Then that lumber, it would be taken out to market by the Carolina and Tennessee Southern Railway to Bushnell, and then on the Southern Railway to Asheville. Okay, folks, let me just, for the time being, turn off lecture mode and turn on explore mode. I need to ask,
how in the world am I supposed to get across that? And I do need to get on the other side of that because the trail goes over there. Oh man. I think we're going to have to go over there because we ain't going to be able to get across there. I mean, you can, but probably the best way is take this little path down here and find the end of this tree. All these spider webs out here are nutty. Probably this way would be the best way. Right over here would be the best way to get across that. And then I'd probably go down here and then go over here. Yes, we're going to have to cross this part. And there is stickers here, but there's nothing I can do about that. Alright folks, bear with me. I gotta jump this. Well, not technically jump it, but I gotta get on the other side of it. And then through here. And I hope I gotta wipe my body off so I don't get no ticks. And then I gotta go all the way back up. But I think it's, right up there, so.
It was all taken to Ritter. Huh. Well, where might that have been? Firstly, it would be a mistake to get Ritter confused with the Ritter Lumber Company, likely named after that lumber company, the town of Ritter, that is. Ritter, however, itself, it was a railroad town situated a few miles downstream from Proctor, at the mouth of Hazel Creek, on the Little Tennessee River, at the junction of the Carolina and Tennessee Southern and Smoky Mountain Railways. Sure, Ritter was named for William R. Ritter. After all, he was the owner of the W.M. Ritter Company, which logged the Hazel Creek watershed from 1908 to 1927. Furthermore, he was also the president of the passenger-carrying standard-gauge Smoky Mountain Railway, which started at Ritter and continued 10 miles to Bone Valley. Ritter, though, more importantly, was also the transfer point for Ritter lumber going to market. You see, some 166 million board feet passed through that town during those 19 years. Now, I could not find photos of Ritter, or maybe I did, but they were marked as Proctor. The two towns were so close together that they might even be considered one in the same. However, one in the same they were not. Now, let's turn on Explore mode for a bit.
What do we have? A sign. It looks like all that water you're hearing is, well, Eagle Creek. We are on Eagle Creek Trail. Now, Hazel Creek is 4.4 miles in that direction up there. So, in order to get here, and there's a reason why I did come here, we are going to talk about it. It's a little bit of a town. It's not technically listed on many gazetteers and maps as such, even historically speaking. However, it is definitely mentioned in documents and all that stuff. And since it's so close to Proctor, well, why not talk about it with Proctor? But before we get into any of that, let's see what this Eagle Creek has to offer. I don't know if we can get a good view. All these trees are blocking the view of the creek. But you can see it over here. Eagle Creek. It's got like major rapids. And it's really moving through there. You can see that. There's like a big rapid over there. You can hardly see it with all the trees in the way. I bet if you own a kayak or something, Eagle Creek would be a lot of fun. Probably would have to be a little higher, but it would be a lot of fun to do in such a boat. But anyhow, why am I here? Well,
it is said that the Carolina and Tennessee Southern number 121 arrived from Bushnell at 9:50 a.m. Later, it returned from Fontana as number 122 at 10:25 a.m. Okay, folks, this is where things are going to get a little bit weird. If you know about Fontana Dam or Fontana Village, forget what you know about Fontana. The name Fontana existed long before that dam was ever thought of. Okay, so let me turn on Explore mode again.
Okay, folks, do you remember earlier when I talked about hearing that water? Well, listen closely here. Do you hear that? That sounds like water too. But I don't think that's just your typical little babbling stream. That sounds like something bigger. Let's see. Look, Ma! It's a bridge! We gotta check it out! So yes, we gotta check this bridge out. We're gonna keep walking this here trail because it looks like it's right up here. And I am almost positive that is a historic bridge. I think that's how it looked in the old days. I don't think the Park Service would go out of their way to put that kind of a bridge here. So, let's see. Besides, we have to cross it anyway, because the trail goes on the other side of it, so we gotta cross it. And let's take a good look at this bridge. You know, I have a strange feeling it's an old railroad bridge. You know, I'm wondering though, these trails, somebody's got to tell me, am I walking on where once a railroad track stood? Because, let's face it, there was lots of tracks in this area in the 1910s and 1920s. I think they were removed when the Park Service took over the area. So maybe this was an old railroad bridge and they turned it into a walkway and kept the historic bridge here. People will be wondering, wow, they kind of went out of their way to create a nice looking bridge. Instead of, you know, one of those things that just crosses the street. But I'm thinking this bridge is an old bridge. That's Eagle Creek, folks. Eagle Creek. That flows under this bridge. Well, all that talk about railroads and stuff, you're probably wondering, what is this place? It's not Proctor, it's 4 miles away, so why am I here? Well,
the original site of what was once called Fontana was located right here at Eagle Creek. Well, actually, it was the second site. The first known use of the name Fontana referred to an area likely somewhere in this vicinity of Hazel and Eagle Creeks, but an area nonetheless that is a bit harder to pinpoint. Reportedly, it has been recorded that the first known use of the word Fontana came with the lumber barons, of course, but not with Ritter or anything. No, among the first was the Montevideo Lumber Company in 1890. The lumbermen of that company, after scouting the forest for the finest timber, went on to pitch a few tents on the Swain County side of the Little Tennessee River and set to work with a mill. And among these first industrial pioneers was the late Mrs. George Lady Wood of New York, the wife of the executive vice president of the Montevideo Lumber Company. She spent a great deal of time in this lumber camp and fell in love with the beauty of the area. She and her husband felt the camps should have a name. Well, it was she who suggested the name, and then it was named. The first Fontana, yes, it was a tent town. And the second village that came to board the name of Fontana, well, it was founded in 1903 as a town for the Montvale Lumber Company. Reportedly, it was located at the mouth of this here Eagle Creek and the Little Tennessee River in Swain County. Now, of course, today, the mouth of Eagle Creek has been drowned by the floodwaters of Lake Fontana. What did remain of this Fontana town then had to be dismantled to make way for the big park. Okay, so I was not able to uncover a large selection of photos from this place. Regardless, though, the village and post office in 1903 was first known as McLean. It was changed to McLinn in 1906, and finally it was changed to Fontana on July 17th of 1907. Apparently, John H. Crisp served as postmaster of Fontana through all three of its namesakes. And here is a photo of John Randolph, a former Eagle Creek teacher working in the Fontana area. You know, though, R.E. Woods, the founder of Montvale, wrote years later that he and his brother George L. desired to call the post office Eagle Creek. Washington, however, said there was already one in the state with that name, as R.E. Woods wrote. So, we decided to call the place Fontana, which, when translated, literally means at the foot of the mountain. Now, back to explore mode for a bit.
Okay, folks, we have come across this. I don't know about you. I'm not certain as to what it is, but what it looks like, kind of, is a crumpled up roof from a building of some sort. That's what it looks like to me. It's got the shape of like those metal roofs, crimped metal roofing. I mean, it's very well. It could have been off a building that may have one time been situated right here, or it was dragged here, which is probably strange if it was, because that's kind of a lot of stuff to be dragging up a hiking trail, and I certainly don't think the Park Service would do that. So I'm going to assume that's probably an old roof. Again, I'm not 100% certain, but that's kind of what it looks like.
When R.E. Woods arrived in 1904 on this here Eagle Creek, a family named Crisp lived at the mouth of the creek. A Cook Bottom lived 2 miles up this here creek. Phil Myers, he lived 3 miles from the mouth at a little town called Ecola. And John Proctor, he lived at the head of that little town of Ecola. There was also a Will Myers. He lived 5 miles up. Also, Dilly Welch lived on Indian Creek Branch, a stream that does not appear on present maps. Maybe it got drowned, maybe it got renamed, not sure. Regardless, let me turn on explore mode again.
And just remember, folks, have you ever trekked this area, as well as other areas in other parts of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park? And if you come across a clearing, say like this, with a lot of land that has only sparse trees like this one, or kind of young trees like this with not much in the way of like more filled in areas such as over here, with a lot more weeds maybe like you find over here, just think, at one time this could have been a homestead. Because along these trails in the park, some of which followed old roads, there were a lot of cabins and houses. Most of them have been torn down decades ago. Such as what I found over here. I wonder how many of these one might find in the park. The remains of an old fireplace. So you know, if you see one of those, there was a house, or at least some kind of building attached to it at some point in history. Now, if that was the case, there must have been a road that led down there from this here road. Where might that road have been? It's hard to say. But you know, the sign, take a look at the sign. Is this here that branch? Maybe there was a mill over here. I'm not certain. It seems like it was a little bit of a ways from the Hazel Creek, which is like right over there though. But where might that road have been? That would lead down to what was down there at one time. I mean, it might not have been up here. It could have been way down there, and it snaked its way across the valley past a couple of other buildings that are long gone and led over here that way. That's a possibility. You never know. There is a possibility, given there's a large stretch of land next to this here road, what was once a road I should say, that maybe there was a road over here somewhere that went down here, like maybe over there, went down over there to that chimney. I don't know. That's possible, but I don't know. It's still kind of steep, but they could have gotten a road down there. That's possible. Still looks kind of steep though. But as I said, maybe there was a building over here even. You never know what was here back in the 1910s and 1920s. Years so long ago that nobody today would have had any idea what it would have looked like back here. Wait a minute. This might be a roadway that once led down. Maybe this is where that road was. This is another trail. But it kind of goes that way. It could have been a road at one time. And it couldn't have gone over here. But then again, maybe, think about it, before the dam was built, before the lake was created, this here, Hazel Creek, is at a point where it's starting to enter the lake, and I would imagine it was much, much smaller than this. So there could have been roads buried beneath there that went to that chimney over there. But you have to realize, Highway 288 is somewhere buried beneath that lake. Maybe the road over there wasn't even from here. It's possible it was from 288. Unless part of Calico Street in Proctor, which is, I'm not certain if it was called that way up here, but this is basically Calico Street. If you just take it, it's Lakeshore Trail today. Calico Street back in the 1910s and 20s when Proctor was thriving.
Regardless, I have no photos of the cabins or houses used by those folk. But, folks, do you know what I do have a photo of? Well, yeah, you likely don't, but what I have a photo of is this, the Quill Rose cabin, which was located at the head of Eagle Creek. Reportedly, once it had a corn mill and a still. Now, Quill and his nephew, Hall Rose, are quite infamous in Swain County history. Why? Well, you can read all about it. That why question right there. You know how it is. I have to move on. Now, Woods had said that he and his brother suspected the presence of valuable minerals on the property. In case of future development of these minerals, the name Fontana might be associated with Montana in the minds of prospective buyers. Montana. Fontana. I can see how that might be a bit of a problem. Whatever, but I doubt it would have ever dawned on him that the name would eventually be almost completely associated with the dam and the lake it created. Okay, folks, at this point, I would love to go searching for a mine in this area. Actually, it is relatively close by, but still quite a ways away. Furthermore, I am not sure if it is easily accessible. Regardless if it is or not, I do not have the time to do that. So, I am not going to go in depth on the mining activities. That research, well, you will just have to do all of that on your own time if you'd like. However, if you are in the mood for some mine stuff, I do have a few photos to whet that appetite of yours. So, I guess I will discuss it a bit briefly. Firstly, here is a view from a boat ride on the lake of near where the mine was said to be located. I believe I might be slightly past it, but it is said to be in this general vicinity. Now, is that mine accessible today? Well, according to a guy on the boat, yes. However, I have been told it is very dangerous to walk through. So, not sure if I would have attempted it or not. Regardless, as stated just before, I just do not have the time to go searching for it to see. But the time has come for a few photos. The first photo is this, a view from the railroad, because, yes, the mine had a railroad. The mine relatively dealt in copper. This here is a photo of what is described as a first aid training program at the Fontana Copper Mine area. Here is a photo of what was once a large Fontana mining crew. This one here is a photo looking northeast of a Fontana mine camp. Here we have a photo of the old Fontana Mines Hotel, situated nicely along the railroad. This here is a photo of what is described as the Fontana Mine headframe. Wow, a nice view here of the Fontana Mine Railroad. And here we have a photo of the mining winch used to lower men and loading cars down into the mines. And, folks, that's pretty much going to be it about the mining operations. We do have to move on. Still, back to the railroad for just a bit. The Carolina and Tennessee Southern Railway secured a right-of-way from the Southern Railhead at Bushnell, just under 14 miles, down the Little Tennessee River to that town of Fontana. Now, the first passenger train from Bushnell to Fontana ran on a Friday on May 29th of 1908. Not sure if this here is the railroad in question. Still, it is a railroad, and it is a railroad once in the Fontana area. But you know how it is. I only have a few select photos. And now we need to switch back to Explorer mode.
Hey folks, I think I found something. I don't know about you. What is that? Wow. So, I am almost positive I think I know what that is. I think when they decided to remove the railroad tracks that have once been in this area, they forgot to take this one away. I wonder if they even know that this is here. It certainly does look like the rails of a railroad. Like the side railing. That certainly looks like that's what it was. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think so. It has a curve to it, going in that direction. Wow. I wonder if they know that's even here. Huh. I wonder how many people walk this trail, look at that, or even see it and think to themselves, why is that here?
Anyhow, during the life of Montvale, you know, that lumber company, some nearly 30 miles of steel narrow-gauge railroad was put down along Eagle Creek. Oh yes, there were big plans for this railroad, plans so big that it had to be cut short by a lake. And no, not Fontana Lake, but another lake. You see, the idea was for the Carolina and Tennessee Southern Railway to continue all the way down the Little Tennessee to, Knoxville. Yeah, that far. However, it lost its right-of-way in 1921. Why, might you ask? Well, get a load of this. The Tallahassee Power Company, it decided to create Cheoah Lake. Regardless, though, cut short or not, stops were made at little town sites like Collinwood, Ecola, Marcus, and Ritter. Yeah, even if you know about Swain County these days, those names you may have probably never heard of. Why? Well, it's simple, really. They don't exist anymore, drowned beneath the lake or dismantled by the Park Service. Reportedly, the old steam engine was named Junaluska for the famed Cherokee Indian who had lived in the area. This photo, though, is not it. I just used it. Well, since I have no photo of that Junaluska engine. With the coming of that railroad in 1908, Fontana apparently became the only town in the western reaches of Swain County to have communications with the outside world, so much so that a telegraph station was established here. I guess, somewhere in or around that mess of buildings. So, here, folks, I am in or around that area today. Take a good look around. Who would have known there were that many buildings in this area at one time in history? But apparently there was. You know, Fontana. It became a small rail center with 5 railroads arriving there. In addition to the Carolina and Tennessee Southern, the narrow-gauge Montvale Railroad operated up Eagle Creek for logging. Furthermore, a narrow gauge operated to the Fontana mines. Reportedly, a 4-mile extension was built by Carolina and Tennessee Southern for the Kitchen Lumber Company to reach its mill near Fairfax. So, let me just again briefly turn on Explore mode.
Well, I have walked that trail down Eagle Creek. Do you remember when I was talking about the possibility of that metal beam on the side of the trail being the remains of an old railroad track? Well, I've walked down the trail, and that is the only place I saw anything like that. So apparently they did a good job at picking up the tracks, with the exception of that one little piece that leads me to think, do they even know it's there?
A number of years later, from Fontana, the Tennessee Valley Authority built a little under than 3-mile line and tunnel in 1942 to construct Fontana Dam. And at that time, it held 12 diesel engines in service. With the rising of the lake to soon start, the Tennessee Valley Authority, they pulled the rails at Fontana in 1944. So, yeah, no photos of that tunnel or even those diesel engines do I have. But still, you should be able to clearly get the picture. Now, folks, do you know where 70 to 80% of the hardwood cut at the Fontana Mill was exported to? What? Huh. No, not even close. Folks, take a look at this map. This should give you a good idea of where all that lumber was transported to. Now, as you ponder that, let me turn on Explore mode.
So here is a building up here. I'm not going to focus too much on that. It looks like an old barn of sorts. I actually think that either that has been greatly remodeled in the past. It doesn't exactly look all that old. It might even be used by the Park Service, because if you don't know, we are in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and it might be used by the Park Service for storage, although I'm not certain what they've got in there. We're not going to focus too much on that building. There's there's something down here. But we'll get into it when we discuss it, when I reach that part of my episode.
Now, folks, I think it is time to move on back to Proctor. Of course, as you should know, Proctor was served via passenger service of the Smoky Mountain Railway. Reportedly, there were 3 stores, a hotel, a clubhouse, a silent movie theater, indoor plumbing, telephones, and electricity. The generator, reportedly, it was operated off the sawmill boiler until 9:45 p.m., and it slowed down until 10 p.m. Why? Apparently, to warn the town it was shutting off for the night. So, what does that mean? You live in Proctor. It's at midnight, and I want to use my laptop. I want to plug it in, but I can't because they shut the power off. Is that what that means? Wow, I don't know. Anyhow, here I am on what remains of Strutting Street. Yes, that was an old street name in Proctor, and folks, did you know that it was made of boards? Apparently so the document does say. It is said to have been on the east side of Hazel Creek, right here where I am now walking. And along its sides once lied such things like the Smoky Mountain Railway, a depot, a barber shop, the Ritter Commissary, the Proctor School, and the Proctor Post Office. Now, folks, let's move over here to the west side of Hazel Creek. What we have here is what remains of Calico Street. Yes, that is another historic street name. And once again, right here, where I am now walking, and along its sides, once lied things like the Proctor Missionary Baptist Church, the Oddfellows Lodge, the Ritter Community Building and Theater, and the W.A. Franklin Store. Now, this photo, however, is of the Calhoun Store. No, they are not one and the same. Now, let me turn on Explore mode yet again.
Okay, folks, according to this sign, the community theater was supposed to be situated like before that house there, over here somewhere. And I have to say, how in the world could they have possibly gotten a building on such a short stretch of land between road and creek bank? There's one possibility. At a time before the lake was created, this here Hazel Creek was a much more slender stream with a lot more land over here. But I don't know. We do know that when lakes are created, they're probably going to back up these streams and make them a little bit bigger as they reach the lake point. It does kind of look like there's a little more land over here. This might have been where it stood.
If at all you have been paying attention from the beginning, as I said, there was also a Union Church dominated by this right here, the Missionary Baptist. Furthermore, Proctor had the only high school in Forney's Creek Township, and for that matter, the only one in the 35 miles between Bryson City and Deals Gap. With that said, once again, I need you to take a look at a map. This one here, it shows the distance there is from Bryson City to Deals Gap. And yes, it is such a long stretch to have only one high school. Now, moving on to the late 1920s, because after the Ritter Lumber Company closed its mill in 1927, Proctor's population, it dropped from 1,000 to, get a load of this, 315. Then, in 1944, the town, it was officially torn away by the Tennessee Valley Authority. Only Granville Calhoun's house remains, and it has been used in the past as a summer ranger's station. The house, it was built by George Higdon. Okay, folks, for I know what you all have been waiting for. I think now is the time for a tour, 'cause I want to know what is inside this thing. And yes, for this, we must turn on Explorer mode.
What do you say we go for a tour inside the Calhoun house, built in 1928? Built on a stone foundation with an interesting layout for the foundation's facade. Look at these windows. How many lights are on those windows? 3 going down, 5 going across, 15 in total. Wow. Those are pretty big casement style windows. And I guess the vertical boards here were put in as supports for the window, would be my guess. So that I guess they could nail this onto something. I mean, it's kind of hard to nail into stone. But can you get inside? No, it's locked. I guess whatever secrets might lie within the foundation of the Calhoun house are going to stay just that, because I can't seem to get in. Nope. Maybe a peek through the windows? Maybe if they weren't so dirty. Yeah, they're dirty. Maybe this one? Maybe, I don't know. There's a post in there. Looks like there's something. No, that's not. Huh. What is that? There's a bug. Wow, big spider. Look, Ma, it's a spider. Anyway, we're going to go up these steps and we're going to go intruding inside this house because I want to. What is that? Somebody's got to tell me what that is. It looks like a brace for something. But anyway, up the steps. Look at the picket fences here at the front. Kind of reminds me of that old TV show with Tom Skerritt. Picket fences. But you know what? Looking as we traverse the porch at the front facade of the house, all of these windows look the same. They've got the 2 lights for the top and the bottom sashes. All of the windows here at the front look the same. There is one difference though. You'll notice they're paired over here and over here. But if we move to the west side, I'm going to assume this is the west side, then, well, this one's single. And there's a window over there too. Now we can go inside here because the door is open, and there is a couch. Not certain if I'd want to sit in it. Looks like a fireplace that might have been converted at some point. There's no mantle or anything. It looks like there might have been. It's hard to tell. But they kind of do need to repair this building though. Some of the stuff is starting to come apart. Here's a little chest for you, a little nightstand, I guess. The only thing is, there is no way inside the other section of this house because this has a wall. I wonder if there never was another section. I wonder if this was like a rental or something. I don't know. Then We've got some nice chairs for you to sit on, but we don't have time to sit down. I've got a lot of stuff to cover. But we are going to go inside the main section, the main block of the house. We've got some rooms here, folks, a few different ones too. Wow, now do you remember on the other side you saw the fireplace? Well, this one here at about the same area, because I think if you like go in that direction here, you'll hit the other fireplace. But this one has a mantle of sorts. It's got the opening. This building is coming apart. I mean, at least the ceiling is peeling off. In lots of different places. Here we've got windows. It might have been double hung. I don't know if you can open that up or not. We're not going to try it. But we're going to go into this room over here, see what they've got. Everything furniture-wise, with the exception of an assortment of couches and chairs, has been removed. This also looks kind of crummy. Like they could repair the building. Looks like all the windows here are almost the same. Here's the other fireplace. I don't know if the openings were covered up or not, but there definitely was something there. Then we're going to move into this room. Wow, sawhorse. Was somebody working in here at some point? Well, this room's got, this don't have that. I don't see that over here. I don't know, but did I see that over here? No, I don't see that over here. Is this a special room? The reason I'm asking is look at the trim at the top. That's kind of a cute little design. It's got like swirls, like ropes, I guess, rope swirls going across. Nice geometric design on the trim. Goes all the way around. Probably was over there too, but came off because of damage. A lot of water damage in here, it looks like. Then it goes all the way around, so I don't know, maybe there was something special about this room. I mean, the bottom baseboards are kind of the same as they are in that room. The door's got pretty much the same green trim and stuff as that room. So that kind of stuff is the same. Here we have an open fireplace. So in this one, it was left open. I mean, was it covered up here? It's hard to say. Because it does have the flue coming through over there. The other one has that too. I don't know about this one. This one doesn't seem to have that, but the one in behind it, the other room that you can't get through from over here because there's no entrance over there. I can't even tell if there ever was one. I don't see any ghost marks that might indicate that. But let's move over into the main hall again. And go into this small room. Now I'm going to assume this here was the bathroom because it's got the plumbing fixtures. Yeah, it's got the mirrors. I don't know why people left stuff here, but do people come in here and eat? I wonder if that can of food is from the 1940s, before the dam was built. And this window is different. They used a different window for the bathroom. It's basically kind of like a casement window with 9 lights, 9 light window. Yeah, I had stuff here. to hold on, to put stuff on. And again, this building is coming apart a little bit. This here, the door was kept. Well, you gotta be careful because if you open this door, that thing comes down. Let's leave it like that. So they kept this door here, I guess, so people can see what these doors look like in this house, because all the other rooms, with the exception of the entrances, and I'm pretty sure this door is not. Yeah, it would fit there, yep. Looks smaller, but no, that's about right. Wow, it's got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panels. But then this door has got the 2 long panels with the 2 shorter ones on the bottom, typical of doors of that time. But then that looks like original hardware, folks. Huh. That's all that's left of the lock mechanism over here. Well, I don't know. Nothing on this side. I don't know what that would do. Maybe a chain lock? I don't know. Let's move over here. Well, I almost hit that well. Let's move over here. We've got this door going inside this section of the house. And what do we have here? Another fireplace. That's kind of strangely set. I mean, it's set on an angle, veering away from the main wall. Nothing here to cover it. Windows over here. That's a strange setting for a fireplace. I'm surprised they didn't just put it in the wall that way, but they needed it to protrude out for some reason. Not sure why. Maybe because there wasn't enough room over here to do it. There's actually one other possibility. I'll talk about that when I go in the next room. Here we have paired windows on this side and this side. Here you can see a lot of the ceiling stuff came off and the wood is showing. A lot of the ceiling paper. Well, we're going to go in this room. So this is the laundry room. Interesting, folks. I'm kind of thinking to myself, where's the kitchen? Maybe this was the kitchen. Not the laundry room. It looks like these were burners. This wasn't the laundry room. This was the kitchen, I think. And this is probably why they had to move this fireplace out. Because they needed a lot of gizmos in the wall here to put all this kitchen stuff up. It looks like that's a heater of some sort. Hot water boiler. No, I'm not certain. And all the piping and stuff. The sink was over here. Kind of curious. Does it work today? Nope. I turn this, no water comes out. Sorry, the sink does not work. If you wanted to wash your hands, it is not going to happen. But the kitchen has small little casement windows, paired, 4 lights each. Did they even open? They must have opened outward. Anything left in the cabinets? What might we find? You never know, you can find lots of money sometimes. It's always good to take a peek. Nothing? Well, we got that. Looks like a case for electrical stuff. Wires that go through here. That's about all that's in there. Wow, we got something here. Oh, somebody's beer or soda can. And then over here, no, nothing too spectacular hidden in these cabinets. Well, we got some more piping and stuff here. Okay, so there's plugs here. I wonder if they work. I doubt it. I don't really have any of my computer equipment or anything that can go in there to see if they work. So I don't know. But we're going in the back of the house now, folks, because we have a porch, a little bit of a shed porch back here. I guess that was where the fuse box was located. And this is the shed porch. We're done with the inside of the house. Little shed porch in the back of the house. Looks like it's got asphalt shingles. Yuck. This is the back of the house, folks. Alright, so in the back of this yard, I am not certain what this is. This looks like a much newer contraption, even more well kept than the house. And probably it's locked. Let's try. You never know, but I'm assuming, yep. Let's try this door. Yeah, they're locked. What's inside here? Maybe we can get a peek. I don't know if you can see too much of the dirty windows. There's like a desk back there and stuff. Looks like the floor has a big hole over here. I can't tell for certain. I don't know. There's a sign over here that says Hazel Creek Trail Shop. So they may actually still use this building, the Park Service, for stuff. I'm not certain, but that's pretty much what's behind the beautiful Calhoun House. One of the last remaining buildings standing in Proctor from its early days when this community was at least somewhat vibrant. I would say, if the sign is correct, and it was built in the 1920s, kind of, they might have started to go downhill a little bit when the lumber company started to leave. So some of the people might have moved out, I don't know. I have heard that was the case with a couple of the towns along the North Shore. But there's a little shed thingy over here. A little outbuilding. Not exactly certain what it is. Let's see what we've got over here. This ground is wet. My socks and shoes are getting wet. I don't know. There's nothing in here. I mean, could have. I don't think it was an animal house. I mean, it might have been. Maybe it was something else. I don't know. There's nothing in there to denote anything. It's similar to that house, I guess, in style. But this here, folks, is the Calhoun House. A cute little find if you ever come to Proctor. Apparently, it was once used by the Park Service, and today it doesn't even look like it's really used by the Park Service too much. There's nothing in there that would lead me to believe that, and I would think that maybe the building behind it is actually used for stuff today. But there it is, the story of the Calhoun House. I like the shape of it. I mean, it's got the steep gable going down the back, but then it comes down the front at about the same angle, but then they have extended it outward even steeper to make room for an elongation of room and porch on the front. Interesting.
After Ritter left, Granville Calhoun purchased the old community building. He operated a store on the first floor and a movie theater upstairs. Now, back to this photo. Here, I wish the quality was much better. Then I would be able to possibly read the signs around the door and stuff. I mean, what kind of stuff did they once sell in there? You know, I don't know. But while Granville Calhoun, you know, this man of Proctor, was on the Swain County Board of Education, on January 8th of 1928, he voted that no married women will be employed to teach. Okay, so I guess a single woman can teach, but not a married woman? Why? Because she must be subservient at the home to the commands of the man? If not for male privilege, then someone must tell me, why on earth was something like this ever supported in the first place? Hey, folks, I don't know about you, but I am hungry, and I want to try a mushroom. A Lakeshore Trail mushroom. Yes, it does look so nice and edible, doesn't it? The problem is, I don't know. Do you think I should try eating it? I think I'll pass. Let's face it, though. That rule must have been hard to enforce. On July 15th of 1932, the board ruled any teacher to be discovered secretly married will be automatically discharged. Furthermore, henceforth, no woman teacher with a living child under 3 years may be employed under any conditions. Now, yes, I can understand maternal leave, but marriage in general? What if a woman was married without children? Oh man, poor Peggy. Regardless, it doesn't just end there. Calhoun and the other members, George W. Beck and W. T. Jenkins, voted on August 1st of 1932 that no Indians could attend white schools in Swain County, North Carolina. Okay, I guess then, white male privilege was well alive in this neck of the woods back in those days, with all the common tenets associated with it. You know, things like sexism and racism. Okay, folks, I need to turn on Explore mode again.
Remember when I was at that Proctor cemetery and I was talking about that door, that metal door? Well, I found another one. Who knew there would be so many artifacts here in the midst of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park that nobody has ever come across yet? Well, I found another one of those doors, almost identical in style, but at this point, however, I found something else. Panning over here, I found those, which look like some kind of gears for something. We got that. That's definitely a gear. Well, wait a minute, that looks like an axle for a car. That's not exactly what I was hoping it would be, but that's what it looks like. That looks like a differential casing. I could be wrong, but that's what it looks like. Over here, what do we have? A big hole. I don't know if there's an animal in there, but I don't want to step in there. Now, of course, this could also be off some vehicle. That looks like a fender of something. I don't know. It looks like it kind of could be. So that's not exactly what I would want to find over here. I mean, yes, it's probably definitely off some ancient vehicle, but I don't think that's off a vehicle though. Why is that here? Why am I finding those around here? Metal doors. Strange.
Regardless, though, Proctor High School was established on May 4th of 1931 by starting the 8th grade and adding another grade each year. The Swain County Board of Education changed the name to the Calhoun Coburn School on September 5th of 1932, and this was to honor the late Reverend Thomas Joshua Calhoun and philanthropist lumberman Jackie Coburn. Reportedly, controversy grew in the community over the name change, and only a few persons ever called the institution anything but Proctor High School. The last report cards did in fact carry the name of Proctor, and in the 1930s and 40s, that Proctor School, it was an 8-room school, and on Hazel Creek, below the ball field, one could have found a baptizing hole. Here, folks, we do need to turn on explore mode.
So, according to this sign, Proctor School was situated on this side of the creek along this here road, someplace over here. And I'm going to assume it may have been where there's a large clearing right over here. I'm not entirely certain, but it looks like over in here there definitely very well could have once been a building. It's certainly big enough. I'm going to assume that it probably was over here. I don't think you're going to find any remnants of it by walking around in that brush. You never know. Archaeologists could find some old historic bricks and stone buried in there. I don't know. But I'm going to assume this was the site of Proctor School, according to that sign. Let's see, we could walk in here. It's kind of wet. Yes, I don't see anything in the ground that would lead me to believe there was ever a building. Any remnants of an old foundation, I don't see anything like that. I see lots of little flowers and weeds like that, but that's about it. Nature took this area over pretty well. I'm not certain when they demolished that school, but apparently I think, at least according to that sign, it was situated right over here.
The news of the Tennessee Valley Authority building Fontana Dam came to fill the school board meetings. The board noted on December 8th of 1942 that the Calhoun Coburn School was a 9-teacher school. After the construction of the dam, however, the school, it would have to be moved and reduced to a 1 or 2-teacher school. Due to the impossibility of securing properly certified teachers, the board closed the school on October 4th of 1943. The school would have been closed anyway in 1944 by the closing of roads to Proctor during the creation of Fontana Lake, and in 1944, the area of Proctor, it was taken into the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. So, folks, let me turn on Explore mode here.
So, folks, this is an area where Eagle Creek starts to widen. And back in the days before the lake was created, as was with Hazel Creek, you'll probably, if you could travel back in time, say that you invent a time machine. I mean, it's possible. Who knows? Anything can happen. But say that would happen and you were able to travel back in time, you would probably find this creek much, much smaller over here, because when they created the lake, a lot of the water would back up into these like small little tributaries and make them much bigger, expanding them, swelling them to 3 to 4 times their normal size. That means that old roads could be buried right under there. Maybe even old train tracks.
Many, many years later, former residents traveling up Hazel Creek did often want to look for that familiar landmark that was once passed by on the Smoky Mountain Railway and the old community road. If Fontana Lake is down, they can climb on Elephant Rock. And if the lake is up, or if I can't find it, you will get this ancient photo of the rock and a few people jumping off it into the river below. Again, explore mode.
Okay, folks, we're going to have to do this very carefully. I mean, I don't know, does that look safe? I mean, I really have no choice. I have to get over to where the boat is going to pick me up. And it's down Eagle Creek, and I don't think a boat can get over in this section. So I have no choice but to cross this bridge. Okay. Well, it looks big enough. Sturdy enough? I sure hope so. Here we go. Yes, there's water beneath me. Well, we're here on the other side. We made it safely. And I guess that's all that matters.
Reportedly, there was a Mrs. Parasadie Welch who lived on Rowan Branch, shown on this map to the far right, who reportedly has never seen a train, despite having lived only 2.5 miles east of the Smoky Mountain Railway on Hazel Creek. She and her husband Jake, whose historic narrative from 1939 can be viewed on this site, died heartbroken a short time after being forced out of their home by the Tennessee Valley Authority in 1944. Before their new house could be completed in Bryson City, they were lying in Watkins Cemetery. And Welch's dying words, they were, "If I could just get one more drink out of Hazel Creek." Well, this cemetery, Watkins Cemetery, is not located near the Proctor area. Maybe this cemetery is closer to where their Bryson City house was slated to be completed. Now, before we put Proctor to rest, folks, there is something I do need to show you. This here is a book excerpt detailing the existence of the ruins of the old Ritter sawmill. Now, I wish I had come across that prior to spending the money to take the needed boat trip across the lake. Yeah, it's true. I came across the book afterwards, so yes, this is being mentioned after the fact. If those ruins are located a little bit off the main trails and into the woods, I would have not known they existed without being told beforehand. So that means, I guess, now you, too, have something to look forward to when you come to explore. As for me, well, now I have got to move on.